On today's show, Grant Williams gets traded to the Dallas Mavericks. I'll break it all down. And then, what's the most underrated move in free agency so far? We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Be an everydayer. Subscribe, follow for free. Just search Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section. What's the most underrated move of free agency so far? Curious what you have to say. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
I got nothing this week. I'm not going to lie. I came in a little unprepared for this part, prepared for everything else. But,
Grant Williams I'm just throwing the chicken breast down on a cold pan today. Nothing. No sizzle. Nothing. Damn, just some olive oil I put on there. That's it.
It's all love. It's all love. Did you say you put olive oil on there? I'm uncomfortable.
I'm doing a cooking metaphor.
There you go.
It's a cooking metaphor. Today, we'll play Count It Up, where we count all the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Keegan Murray going off in Summer League. Does he need to be there? Victor Wembanyama, everybody wants to be there.
Yeah.
Should Wemby start making some requests on his first Summer League, on the eve of his first Summer League coming up on Friday? The NBA announced the in-season tournament. We'll talk about that and more in Count It Up. We'll do our two most underrated free agency moves so far. We each have one. Could be good, could be bad. Underrated goes both ways. But let's start here. The Dallas Mavericks trade for Grant Williams and a sign and trade deal that brings Grant Williams to Dallas, 2 second-round picks to Dallas as well. Celtics get 2 second-round picks and a traded player exception for Grant Williams. The Spurs come in out of nowhere and they get Reggie Bullock from the Mavericks, and they get a pick swap in 2030 with the Dallas Mavericks. Looking to the future there. Victor Wembanyama will be in the league for 7 years already. He may be gone. Like, if he doesn't take his rookie extension, he may be gone from the Spurs, and they have that pick swap. Just a wild way to look at how far off that pick swap is. But let's start here. For the Mavericks, this is a good move. If you think that Grant Williams and Reggie Bullock are the same level of player, and I think probably some people do, right? 3-and-D wing, you're bringing some intangibles here and there, but you're not really adding a lot to shot creation or elite defense or things like that. But you do bring some of those categories, right? Like 2 3-and-D wings. For the Mavericks, their calculus is if they're even just the same player, the same talent level of player, we know at least Grant Williams is like 7 years younger than Reggie Bullock, and now we have him under contract for 4 more years. And also, he's bigger than Reggie Bullock. I almost said the problem the Mavericks had. One of the many problems that the Mavericks had last year was that they didn't have anybody to guard these big wings. They traded away Dorian Finney-Smith, and they just didn't have Maxi Kleber. Just couldn't hold up for as long. Like, you just can't put him against wings. He's more of a 5 and like a small ball 5 than he is a 4 to hold up against the modern 4 in the NBA, who's just like a LeBron 6'8", 6'9", big dude that does a lot of stuff with the ball in his hands. That's most of what the NBA 4s are right now. So they didn't have somebody like that to guard a Julius Randle, a LeBron, somebody like that. And so now they get that. And that's the move for the Mavericks. What did you think about it?
He's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He's listen, I thought, 54 million over 5. It's not bad, right? What was that? It's like years. Basically, or over 4, I'm sorry. Basically like 11 something and some change. I mean, he's okay. I'm not losing my mind at this deal. I don't think that it's an oh my God bad deal. I don't think it's an oh my God good deal. I think you get a solid player able to come in who can give you some production down low, both offensively and defensively. He'll be able to shoot you a little bit. I don't think that he brings an overwhelming. He doesn't shift what I thought about the Dallas Mavericks one way or the other.
No.
I think that he's a nice depth piece to add, and that if he doesn't pop off at the mouth versus Jimmy Butler, you may be able to do some things. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those guys to me.
He makes them a little bit better, but I'm agreeing with you that he doesn't for this show for Locked On. I'll talk about on Locked On Mavs what I think makes him better, but for this show, he doesn't make them demonstrably better. I'm not looking at them and being like, oh my gosh, the Mavs their moves have just been so good that I think they're going to be so much better. They've done really well with every move they've made this offseason, right? Such a difference from last offseason with we're bringing in JaVale McGee and he's going to start and we're going to try Christian Wood and trade a first round pick for him. Like to do that, to now do all the moves they've done now. And what I've been saying on Locked On Mavs is they addressed their past with re-signing Kyrie. So at the very least, your baseline from last year is the same. You're not going to be worse than last year, right? Like you're going to be at least the same. You addressed your past. You address the future with getting the move for Derek Lively and for Omax Prosper, like bringing those guys in is looking at your future and looking towards your future to address that. They just hadn't addressed their present very much. Like they still just on paper next season were not demonstrably better than they were last year. Seth Curry does that a little bit, helps them a little bit there.
Seth, I like
and then Grant Williams helps them a little bit there. They're still looking for a center. And they have the Matisse Thybulle who will help them right now. They have that restricted free agency thing kind of locked up right now. We'll see what happens in a couple days if Portland decides to match that. But they're still looking for a center, and that's how they really can address what's going on right now for the Mavericks.
All I'll ask is this, right? I mean, you're the Mavs expert on the network. I still believe you're dime dropper 55 or 20 or whichever one you guys
I'm not dime dropper 20, but I could be dime dropper 50.
You could be 55. You could be 55 for sure. That's the third backup burner. Shout out to him, though. He's got to be an exec, right? He's got to be an exec. He's
got to be some exec's kid, like a Nepo baby that's in a front office somewhere.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll show you, Dad.
Yep.
But you have to. This is how I try to think about it, right?
He's Daryl Morey's kid.
It's Daryl Morey's kid, or it's Daryl Morey. It's just Daryl Morey.
He just got real bored. Didn't Daryl Morey he wrote a basketball musical? Like the dude gets bored. He needs stuff. He needs stuff to do.
He needs stuff to do. He's tweeting it all. He's like,
hey,
the Philadelphia 76ers are absolutely trading James Harden. Oh, are we now?
The Sloan Conference comes but once a year, so.
Here's what I'll ask you as the Mavs expert on the network, and when you dive in on the how it's going to go game by game, right? You know he's going to give you 3 games of a good plus minus, solid rebounds, and then there's going to be the 2 that are bad. There's going to be the 3 games in a row where you're just like, what's he doing out there? Why is he out there? When you think about it in that kind of, I guess, hyper-focused angle, how are Mavs fans going to respond to Grant Williams as a player? Because we know what he is. He's going to be the guy that 3 games, he can win it for you. 2 games, he could be the reason you lose.
Yeah, that's how the Mavs play, right? Can I do the uncut gems? This is how I win, right? Like, I don't know why I twisted my mustache when I said that.
Yeah, but I don't know.
This is how they've won. Reggie Bullock was the same way. He would, for the first 2 months of the season, shoot terribly, awful. Like Mavs fans were ready to just kick him out. There was a Mavs fan that after the move today tweeted, so long and farewell to Reggie Bullock 43-minute cardio sessions for the Mavericks. Like that, he would go hot and cold. Dorian Finney-Smith used to go hot and cold. Tim Hardaway Jr. for sure goes hot and cold. Maxi Kleber goes hot and cold. And they all went really hot when the Mavericks went on their run to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago now. And they all went cold towards the end of this past year when they could have tried to make the play in, and then they didn't, and then they didn't try not to, and then all that. So it's business as usual. But what I'll tell you is I do think that Grant Williams is going to take even more open threes than he did for the Celtics. Because think about going from the creation of Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon to Luka Doncic. Like just that step up, right? Like Luka, besides maybe Jokic, creates more open threes than anybody in the NBA, and they're just gonna knock him down. The other part for the Mavericks is they were so thoroughly embarrassed last year that you can't just make one move. And so all right, we've got to make a couple moves here so that we don't just have like 2 or we're not just relying so heavily on 2 to 3 role players. Now you have a bunch of them. In the moves that they've done now. Seth Curry, knockdown shooter. Josh Green's been really good. Maxi Kleber has been good. You bring in Dante Exum that they can trot out there. Grant Williams now, maybe Matisse Thybulle. Like you've just got a bunch of different guys now that you can start throwing in different roles. and trying that maybe one isn't hitting, then maybe the other one else is. And offense is not going to be the problem. They were a great offense last year, even with the pieces that they really didn't have. Like just Luka and Kyrie alone will be a good offense. They needed to improve the defense.
Yeah, I just feel like some of the moves that we've seen this offseason, and this kind of falls in that for me, not to say it's a bad move, but it's a move to make moves. Like I guess size-wise, you didn't have this guy, but you kind of said it. You guys kind of had this guy.
Yeah, right. No, he just got younger and a little bigger. Like, that's what they did, and fine. Like, I think
is good, right? Like, I guess that's the right direction.
It's a good move for the Mavericks. Bullock had taken a step back defensively. You get Grant Williams, and maybe he is on the way up instead of on the way down. So that's what the moves the Mavs have been making. Coming up, let's talk about some other moves in free agency. What are the most underrated moves of the offseason, both good and bad? We'll talk about that with Pat coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetterHelp. BetterHelp can help you. Everybody's got things they need to talk about, whether it's Pat, who's a dad, and he's got, a job, multiple jobs with multiple different places. Like he's traveling all over the place. He's talking all the time. He's got to be able to talk to somebody and not at somebody all the time. And so BetterHelp can help him do that and help him figure out and walk through life. For me, I don't have kids, but I've got multiple podcasts I'm working on. I got all these hosts I have to wrangle all the time, and I need someone to talk to.
We are your kids.
How to deal with the Pat the designers of the world. So BetterHelp can help you. I've used BetterHelp myself, and I really love that you're able to just find the right therapist for you. You just create, you fill out a questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and the first one that I was matched with, I didn't really vibe with. And so I switched, and you're able to switch at any time, and they expect it at that point. It's not going to hurt their feelings or anything like that. You're expected to switch. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of the show, supporting the network. We have a daily, 5 days a week podcast on your team every day. I host Locked On Mavericks. You can go listen about Grant Williams and Matisse Thybulle and more on our show. On Locked On Bulls, Pat and Hayes are talking all kinds of, is Zach LaVine really going to get traded?
He's not going anywhere.
Is he really going to get traded? They got the insight on that. So click the link in the description to find the show that covers your team every day. All right, Pat. The underrated free agency moves. There's been a bunch of moves. There's lists all over the place of where the moves came from and all that. We'll give each other one good underrated free agency move and an underrated bad free agency move. My first one, the Utah Jazz made a move earlier. They had some cap space. They were going into the offseason like $40 million in cap space. Nobody's going to sign there, right? Who's signing in Utah?
Same people that are signing in Portland.
They don't have great nightlife there, according to Dirk Nowitzki. It's a bad Utah is a bad city, according to Dirk Nowitzki. No one's signing there. So what they do with this cap space is they accept John Collins as a salary dump, and I think this is an underrated good move for them. I'm buying in because of one thing. Look at what Will Hardy just did with Lauri Markkanen. You saw Lauri Markkanen like firsthand. Did you ever think Lauri Markkanen would turn into this player that we just saw?
I always thought Larry could play. He was 18-9 his first year, but the Bulls had Jim Boylan. So,
and then what happened with John Collins?
Who's now an Indiana coach, by the way. So prayers to Indiana.
Jim Boylan, did he really? I missed that. But look at John Collins. His second year, 19, 10, 2 assists. Like, he's a guy that had put up some numbers early, got paid, got that big deal, and then he's been this. Well, we're talking about John Collins trade rumors again. I think that they have an opportunity to boost his value and to make him an actually like productive player again. I think Will Hardy can do that. I think the Jazz can do that. They have the opportunity to, and I think it's an underrated move for the Jazz.
I think John Collins is an underrated move, but I think the biggest question mark is he going to want to be there? How long is he going to want to be there? Because that was the problem.
What are they going to do? Trade him?
Well, no.
The Hawks have been trying for 2 years.
Well, that's how this whole thing started, though. Remember, like literally, it was like they signed him. He got hurt, came back off an injury, and was like, "I don't want to be here." I was like, "Wait a minute, hold on. We just gave you the money. We just gave you this money.
He's not playing next to a Trae Young though. That's going to take 25 shots a game and all that. Like it's a different environment, and he's higher up the pecking order in this one than he was.
I will say I think that I have a lot more faith in consistent utilization of John Collins. It will come down to him being on the court and being able to take advantage of it. Remember, Lauri Markkanen. I've said this multiple times. The reason that Lauri Markkanen ended up leaving Chicago overall, and why Bulls fans kind of were done with him, I think the organization kind of was done with him. There was a change in the organization, and he could not stay healthy. Yeah. He was a player that every time he'd get it going, he would get hurt again.
Porzingis, yeah.
Goes over to Cleveland, gets a role-playing role, boom, he's fine. Goes to Utah, healthiest season this guy's had probably since his rookie year, and he's back playing as a number one like he can play. So I think that John Collins will come down to health to me, and that will be the biggest thing about how he'll be used, because he can play. Like, I don't think anybody thinks he can't play.
How do you feel that the Finnish military is getting the best version of Lauri Markkanen when the Bulls never did?
Fam, he's posting pictures. Like I'm just watching him like carry like tires, and like the guy that was supposed to be carrying the tire behind him on his back. I'm just like, my God, he's gonna come back just jacked.
He won't skip leg day anymore. That's for sure. All right, give me one of your moves.
I'll actually give you. Here's my thing. Here's my good. And yes, I'm gonna be a homer on this one. I don't care. Javon
Carter? Yeah,
Javon Carter's a good move. And here's the reason why. The Chicago Bulls with a point guard. There are 2 point guards we've talked about the Bulls having, Patrick Beverley and Lonzo Ball. Both were very short stints. But when the Chicago Bulls had those players, Zach LaVine was a 25-plus point per game player. He's your highest paid player. Sometimes you have to do a little chess, right? You have to make the move that puts your biggest piece in the best position. It seemed like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine all of a sudden could play together. Nikola Vucevic had options to pass the ball to that could shoot. I think that you've replaced that by bringing in Javon Carter. And I think that what I love about it is the biggest question mark I had was, okay, how are they going to replace point guard play, shooting, and defense all at once?
Right.
You found the one guy in free agency that you actually could do it with, where Javon Carter shoots above 40% from three. Don't get me started on Fred. Don't get me started. Let's not do that here.
He can add that stuff.
Let the Houston fans live right now. Let the Houston fans live right now.
It was a positive comment. It was a positive comment.
I know, but you're wrong. But no, I just feel like it for the money that you got him at, a $20 million contract over 3. I think that he's going to bring a positive to the team. Who, when they had the point guard play, the other stat that really sticks out, they won 61% of their games.
So, and who is he playing with in those games?
No, I'm talking about with the Bulls.
On the Bulls.
When they had Lonzo Ball in there and they had Patrick Beverley, they won 61% of their games. So apparently point guard play, even though it feels like it shouldn't be, is the biggest key.
Yeah, with the Bulls, it feels like you need one of those guys that, all right, I can set the table, but I'm not dishing any of the dishes, right? Like I'm bringing the ball up the court and I'm able to like start the offense, but then I'm going to give it up to LaVine and DeRozan and Vooch too to do some playmaking and make that happen. And then I just become a guy that runs around and takes spot up threes, and that's what Javon Carter can do. Plus the defense that he brings that you lost when Pat Beverley left. So yeah, I'm with you. This is an underrated move. All right, my underrated bad move.
Let's do it.
Sacramento. They've had a lot of really good things happen to them. They've made the playoffs. They're back. Like Sacramento is back. Their fans are enjoying stuff. Sacramento on draft night traded the 24th pick to dump Rashawn Holmes' contract, and they opened up $30 million in space. And so. That night, Mavericks fans were very happy about getting Omax Prosper. Nico Harrison had told Omax, we're getting you before the draft. And then he went and got him and actually did it, which is awesome. And so, but then on the Sacramento side, everyone was talking about, well, is it Kuzma? Are we getting this guy? Are we getting this guy? Are we getting this guy? And all that they did with $30 million in space, they were the only team with a winning record last year that had actual cap space. Actually, if you look at them, everybody else didn't have cap space. They're all over the cap teams. And what did they do with it? They just brought everybody else back. And so, like, that's underrated. That's underrated bad to me, is that you had that opportunity to get that. You didn't go after Kuzma. You just brought back all your guys. And they didn't even sign anybody not from their team, right? Like, I don't even think they... No, like, they brought back... They signed Sabonis to an extension. Trey Lyles. Harrison Barnes came back. And Alex Len. And so, to me, that's an underrated bad move that you didn't take that opportunity of $30 million and do anything more than just take care of what you had that was good last year, because the West is just getting better around them.
The question I'd ask would be, were there offers made that people just went elsewhere with? Like, that's the only that's the only thing that I can ask, because I agree with you. It makes no sense to me. You would think that at a minimum, right? What you saw in that Warriors series should have told you that you need to go out and get a legit defender, right? Like the little bit of defense that they played in that Warriors series pushes it to 7. And all of a sudden we're sitting here and we're like, oh snap, can this Kings team actually get to the next level? And I believe I said it here on Locked On NBA. We talked about it here, where I said, if they can just play enough defense to literally keep teams to 106, 108 points, they'll win. They can win the NBA championship because of how much they can score the basketball. So I would have liked to see them do more. I agree with you. That's an underrated bad one. That is. It's bad. It's bad just by staying stagnant. Like, they didn't get worse,
right?
But you stayed stagnant.
And they used their first round. They could have just not dumped Rashawn Holmes and used the first round pick, on somebody at that point, and maybe use it on somebody that can help you in the future. But like, there's a couple of players that went and signed deals that you think, oh man, could they have picked Jakob Poeltl? Like, couldn't Jakob Poeltl have helped them with rebounding? And can he play next to Sabonis? You can still bench him because you're only paying him 20. It's not like you're paying him 30 or something like that. They're not doing Dylan Brooks. He would have helped defensively, but I don't think they were doing that. But there wasn't a ton of defensive guys that really moved. I mean, Brook Lopez signed for $24 million with the Bucks back. But all right, give me your last one.
My last one. Just because it makes absolutely no sense. Max Strus got the baggy bag.
You think this makes no sense?
Max Strus going to Cleveland makes absolutely no sense because you also kept Karis LeVert. How you're utilizing Karis LeVert is how you're going to utilize Max Strus. And now you're sitting here and you're like, okay, well, who's going to be the starter in this situation? They both are kind of going to just be the guy roaming around trying to get the scraps on the open shots. I think that Max Strus is also maximizing, see what I did there, on getting hot at the end in Miami, because I don't know if people remember this. I know that Miami run was phenomenal at the end. Most of the season was not. Most of the season for the Miami Heat was a very mid-season. So I just don't feel like this was a move that you had to go out and get done. And I'm not going to lie, it makes it much worse when Wemby drops the fingers on it. He's like, what's going on in Cleveland? Keep an eye on what Cleveland's doing. And it's Max Strus, Gorey Niang, and Karis LeVert. That's what Cleveland's doing.
All right, I saw what you did there with the maximum pun. I don't see what you're doing here with this take, because I completely disagree. I think Karis LeVert and Max Strus do very different things. I think Max Strus is your spot-up shooter. They needed a guy that can take 9 threes in a game. Their guy last year that would do that was Cedi Osman. They're upgrading from Cedi Osman to Max Strus. What Karis LeVert does is he's not a spot-up shooter. He's a guy that'll go get you a bucket. And putting him now as the bench guy gives him a really clear, defined role of, you're the guy that comes off the bench. You can do what you want, but go get us 20 points on any given night. Go score, go get to the cup, like score buckets and that kind of thing. And so, to me, I think they do different enough things. I think it was a little bit of an overpay for a guy in Strus. He's 27. They're giving him, $15 million a year. But you got to do that if you're Cleveland. You can't, and especially for a guy switching teams. Like, you can't just pay him like, oh, well, we'll give him Austin Reeves money, and match that up. You got to convince a guy to move to a different city. And honestly, to move from Miami to Cleveland,
hey,
reverse and then inverse LeBron.
Hey, listen, I said this was Max's way just to not go to Portland. Like, he was just like, who's paying? I don't want to be there.
I think I'd rather be in Portland than Cleveland. Is Max Strus the second best player to ever go from Miami to Cleveland?
That's gross. Well, there was a stop in the middle.
There was a bull stop. That's right.
Yeah, there was a bull stop in the middle there.
All right, let us know what you think about your most underrated move coming up.
Count it up.
Count it up, where we talk about the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including a bunch of summer league stuff and the NBA's in-season tournament. We'll talk about all that and more coming up. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA. Continuing on here, we're going to go to our game.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it.
Count it up. Keegan Murray finished the night in Summer League with 41 points against Miami in the California Classic. 11 of 20 from the field, 13 of 15 from the free throw line. My question is,
count it up.
At what point do we not need a Keegan Murray type in the Summer League anymore? Like, how many points until you knew, all right, well, maybe he just shouldn't play because he's just way better than everybody else?
Nah, listen, this was the J.R. Henny Smith return to Summer League. Y'all remember that? That's what this was, where it was like, oh, hey, he's an NBA player who's been in a system and just knows what he's doing already. We might not need to see him out here anymore. By the way, he's killing everyone. This is one of those where it's just like, hey, it's one of two things. A, this guy just loves basketball, and the fact there's basketball to be played right now, he said, I'm going to play it. Or B, he was bored, needed some run, and was like, I just got a little knee tightness. I just need a little run. And I'm out. Like, I don't think he plays another game in Summer League.
That's my point with this, is with the guys like Keegan Murray, with I think Jaden Hardy, with other guys in the NBA that'll go and play Summer League. I think that there's some guys that aren't into the nightlife stuff, that aren't into the vacations. You know, you hear about Herb Jones, he went fishing and like that's all he does. Like, I think there are some of these guys that aren't into all the extra stuff, and they just want to hoop, and I think they get bored. And I think Keegan Murray got bored, and he's like, well, I don't have to go very far, and I could just go play and hang out with some guys, and we travel a little bit, and I can go play, I get per diem, and
get per diem. He's getting the per diem. That's why he's doing it. He's doing it for the per.
Do it for the per diem.
Does it come with a meal voucher?
I was at Mavs Summer League practice, and at the end the other day, team associate comes out and is like, hey, I got the per diem for everybody. And all of a sudden, Daryl Armstrong, a former NBA player, his assistant coach, goes, free money! He just yells for free money in front of me. Tickets for NBA Summer League in Vegas on Friday, the first day, are sold out. The Thomas and Mack Center, which is the bigger arena that all the big games will go in, has a capacity of nearly 19,000 because it's the UNLV stadium. My question is, it's all for Victor Wembanyama, or most of it's for Victor Wembanyama, who's going to play and has said that he's going to play. My question is,
count it up.
Should Wembanyama start asking for a cut of the sales of these tickets? Because he's driving the price, right? You look at all these like artists that, that go and perform in these venues. They get a cut of everything that comes from this. You look at comedians and things. They get a cut of what comes into this, and it's prorated based on how many tickets they sell and things like that. Should we start doing this for the Victor Wembanyama? Not for NBA games, but should we do it for the Summer League exhibition type games where like this doesn't happen? You don't sell out Summer League unless a Victor Wembanyama. It was Lonzo Ball back a little while ago with the Lakers, like a special case like that.
First off, I think we're overlooking the fact that the Bulls have Julian Phillips playing in that game, taken in the second round. I think that's really.
I can't believe you just said a name.
Tuning in.
I don't even know that name. I'm gonna have to. You can tell me he's anything, and I would believe it.
He's anything is great.
This man is 7 foot 8 feet tall, and I would believe.
No, they shouldn't give Victor Wembanyama a cut, but I do love the fact that this kid is going to get the opportunity to put on a show early in front of a large crowd. And I think that here's the funny part. I think it's going to be a benefit and a really put on a lot of pressure for and weed out some of the other guys who, like if you're meant for this league, if you're made for this league, it'll be really good to see. You'll be able to say, I played in front of 19,000 and dominated. And if you're not,
I was at Summer League for those Lakers games where it was D'Angelo Russell, then it was Brandon Ingram, Kuzma, Josh Hart, Alex Caruso, like all those guys on one team. And those games were packed, like because it's only 3 hour drive from LA. So there's a ton of Lakers. I mean, it's just full of Lakers fans all over the place. Yep. And those games felt like playoff games at some point. D'Angelo Russell hit a game winner, runs into the media section, and I'm standing like 4 feet from him, and he's doing the ice in my veins thing. Like the place just erupted, and it was like an electric atmosphere. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be like that for Wembanyama because people are just going to cheer for him because they're there just to see him, to see what he's going to be like. The NBA announced that the Final Four of the new in-season tournament that'll start next season will take place December 7th and 9th in Las Vegas. My question is,
Count it up.
Scale of 0 to 5. What's your interest level in the in-season tournament next year? 0 being none, 5 being like, I'm so into it, I'm locked in.
I'll say a 4. I'm pretty high.
You're really into it.
Well, I just want to see what it's going to be in an American sense in sports. This is the same thing that we see overseas all the time. I want to see how American players respond to it, and I want to see how it's going to play out because overseas and like FIBA and different things like that, if I win the midseason tournament, that guarantees me something going for the major tournament at the end of the year, a spot or a better, right? Like it locks me into something. And the NBA, they're just like, we'll just give you money.
Do you know?
I just don't think that's going to matter enough to anybody.
You cover the Sky for the Chicago Sky for WNBA. I follow I am a season ticket holder of the Dallas Wings for WNBA. Do you know what the Sky's record is in their in-season tournament right now?
No, what is it? Hold on. I mean, you got me on the spot now. You got me on the spot. Now. I don't like how you did. I like how he's like, you cover this guy. It's like,
I've heard you do live calls on the Breeze.
We'll do live calls of this guy.
I've heard you do live calls.
We'll do live calls.
But my point is the WNBA has done this, and I love the WNBA. And I'm a season ticket holder. I go to all the Wings games. Like I love the Wings. I have no idea what their in-season tournaments like record is right now. I have no clue. It could be anything, and so I don't know which games are conference or which games are tournament games or which games are not. It's called Commissioner's Cup in the W, and I don't know at all.
Commissioner's Cup, yeah.
And I have no clue. So
I think what's weird, and here's the tough part about that, and that's kind of how I feel like this is gonna feel. I forget about it every time.
It's just gonna be there.
Finals. Yeah, like that's the only time I think about it. Like it. I guess that is true. We are in the in-season.
And like some games are not, some games are.
I didn't even think about that. Like I literally only think about it when it's like you're playing for the Commissioner's Cup.
Right.
But realistically, that's probably what this is going to be, right? Because it's just money.
Yeah, and it'll come down to those final couple games, the ones in Vegas, and those will be fun. Like we'll enjoy watching those. Maybe the guys will try a little bit more than they would in a November, December like regular season game. And so there's a little bit of a before like Christmas. The Christmas Day games really feel like the NBA starts. So maybe there's a little bit of that.
There and will Patrick Beverley cry?
Will Karl Anthony Towns claim that it's better than an NBA championship?
Hey. That was so much in that interview that was just like, what are we talking about right now? What's happening?
All right, I got one more for you.
Let's do it.
Jeff Van Gundy was sadly let go by ESPN. Mark Jackson will remain, which baffles me. But my question is,
count it up.
How much will you miss Jeff Van Gundy on ESPN calls with Mike Breen?
You did this on purpose. I will not miss them in the slightest. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. Listen, I know it's longevity. I know he's been a part of the NBA family forever. Oh my God, we lost Jeff Van Gundy. Y'all did not like him. I was on Twitter. Y'all didn't like him. Nobody liked him. But all of a sudden, Jeff Van Gundy's been at this job for 20 years. How can we let this? You just don't like change. You want to know what every Jeff Van Gundy, Mike Breen call was like? It'd be Jeff like, yeah, you know what my problem is right now with the NBA? They're letting headbands go. What happened to headbands? I miss the headbands. And Mark Jackson's like, yeah, you know, my thing is I really like the ankle socks that come up, but sometimes they don't come up. And then Mike Breen's actually trying to call the game. He's just like, Harden for 3. Good. Bang! Like nobody liked it. The selective memory irritates my soul because the second he was let go, everyone was a fan of Jeff, and all Twitter ever was for Jeff was just a place to go for Jeff jokes. Be honest with me, Nick. Be honest with me. When is the last time you were like, Van Gundy made a really good point there?
I was listening to, I think, Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo on their podcast talking about this, and they were like talking about how Jeff Van Gundy's the best color commentator we have in the NBA. And I was like, oh, he makes some good points every once in a while. And he does this. And they're like, I think ESPN's messing up big time when they got rid of him and blah, blah, blah. I don't think anybody cares. I think people like to complain about stuff, and I think if they change him for Doris Burke or like JJ Redick, or they bring back Vince Carter somehow. I thought Jim Jackson, I think, does a good job on them. Like, they bring in any of those guys, it's not gonna.
Well, Vince is also going out the door. So
that's true. Yeah, that's what I meant. They bring Vince back somehow. I don't think anybody cares about that. Right? Like, nobody cares about that. And it's not going to change.
All you want to hear is bang, and then you want to hear, look at that. Got to play up on that. Hand down, man down, mama. There goes that man.
To be clear, I do not want to. I put it on mute sometimes when it's if it's just Mark Jackson and Mike Breen, I'm sorry. It can't be just 1 and 2. It's got to be a third on there.
You call me on those games, and I'll live call them personally for you.
I'll
do a personal live call for you.
I'll just hold my phone up and you'll just not even over a stream or anything. You'll just do it over the phone. There you go. Let us know what's your most underrated move of the offseason so far in the comment section, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. We'll be back tomorrow. Wes Goldberg, Adam Mares previewing Summer League. Great stuff. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.
Boom.